On a rainy evening in September 1900, one of the richest men in America was found dead inside his quiet Manhattan apartment. At first, his passing appeared to be nothing more than the natural end of a long life. But within hours, an unexpected document surfaced. It was a brand new will that completely overturned years of careful estate planning, redirecting an enormous fortune into the hands of a single man almost no one expected. What followed became one of the most extraordinary criminal investigations of the 20th century. A suspicious inheritance, a disputed confession, conflicting medical evidence, and an ink formula that would ultimately expose a carefully planned deception. Even today, historians continue to debate one central question: was William Marsh Rice murdered for his fortune? Or did an ambitious lawyer exploit the natural death of an elderly millionaire before anyone realized what had happened? To understand the mystery, we have to begin with the man at its center. William Marsh Rice had built an enormous fortune through business, railroads, and real estate, making him one of the wealthiest Americans of his generation. Despite possessing an estate worth around $6 million in 1900, an amount equivalent to hundreds of millions today, Rice lived with remarkable simplicity. He avoided lavish parties, expensive homes, and the public attention that often followed great wealth. By the time he reached his 80s, Rice had become increasingly private. His wife had passed away years earlier, he had no surviving children, and many of his relationships with extended family had quietly faded over time. Rather than leaving his fortune to distant relatives, Rice envisioned something much larger. He intended to establish a free educational institution in Houston, creating opportunities for generations of students long after his own lifetime had ended. Friends, business associates, and legal advisors all understood this plan. It was not a secret. Rice had spoken openly about his charitable intentions, making any sudden change to his will both surprising and immediately suspicious. That enormous fortune, combined with the absence of direct heirs, created a tempting opportunity. Anyone capable of changing Rice's final wishes stood to gain a fortune beyond imagination. One man who entered Rice's world during these final years was Albert Patrick, a young lawyer from Texas struggling to establish a successful legal career despite his intelligence and ambition. Patrick was educated and persuasive, but professional success had largely escaped him. The possibility of gaining influence over one of America's richest elderly businessmen offered a chance to completely transform his future. Living alongside Rice was another important figure. Charles Jones served as the millionaire's trusted valet, managing his daily routines and enjoying constant access to the apartment and its private affairs. Jones knew Rice's habits better than almost anyone else. He handled correspondence, monitored visitors, and spent countless hours inside the apartment where the elderly millionaire lived out his quiet final years. Whether Patrick and Jones simply performed their responsibilities or gradually began exploiting Rice's growing isolation would soon become the central question facing investigators, prosecutors, and eventually an entire nation. On September 23, 1900, William Marsh Rice was found dead in his bed at the age of 84. Given his advanced age, few people initially questioned the circumstances surrounding his death. Doctors believed an elderly man had simply passed away after declining health. There were no dramatic signs of violence, no obvious struggle, and no immediate reason to suspect that a serious crime had taken place. Then the situation changed almost overnight. Albert Patrick presented what he claimed was William Rice's most recent will, allegedly signed only shortly before the millionaire's death. The document stunned everyone involved. Instead of funding the university Rice had planned for years, the new will awarded nearly his entire estate to Albert Patrick himself. For those familiar with Rice's long-established intentions, the sudden reversal seemed almost impossible to explain. Yet the paperwork appeared complete, and legal procedures to transfer the fortune quickly began moving forward. Banks prepared to release millions of dollars from Rice's estate. Unless someone challenged the authenticity of the documents, Patrick appeared destined to become one of the wealthiest men in America almost overnight. Then an observant bank employee noticed something that seemed almost insignificant. One check presented during the estate transactions contained a simple spelling mistake in Patrick's own first name. Instead of reading Albert, the check spelled it Abert. On its own, the error looked trivial. But for experienced banking officials handling enormous financial transfers, small inconsistencies demanded closer examination. If William Marsh Rice truly trusted Patrick enough to leave him millions of dollars, why would he misspell the name of the man receiving his entire fortune? The bank froze the transaction before any money changed hands. Authorities were notified, and investigators began examining every document connected to Rice's death with far greater scrutiny than before. Attention quickly focused on Albert Patrick and Charles Jones, the two men who had enjoyed the closest access to Rice during the final months of his life. Detectives questioned Jones extensively. Under mounting pressure, the valet eventually confessed to participating in what prosecutors described as a carefully planned conspiracy against his employer. According to Jones, Patrick convinced him that Rice was already close to death and persuaded him to help administer chloroform while the elderly millionaire slept peacefully in his bed. The confession appeared devastating. Prosecutors believed they finally understood exactly how the crime had unfolded, with Patrick directing the scheme and Jones carrying out the physical act. The confession appeared devastating. Prosecutors believed they finally understood exactly how the crime had unfolded, with Patrick directing the scheme and Jones carrying out the physical act. As the trial began, many observers believed the outcome was already certain. A confession, a suspicious will, and a massive financial motive seemed more than enough to secure convictions. Then medical experts presented findings that dramatically changed the direction of the entire case. Their testimony challenged the very foundation of the prosecution's murder theory. The autopsy revealed that Rice suffered from significant natural illness associated with advanced age. His lungs showed serious congestion, but proving exactly what caused his death proved far more difficult. Crucially, the examination failed to produce convincing scientific evidence that chloroform had caused William Rice's death. For prosecutors, this created an unexpected and dangerous problem. Defense physicians argued that Rice likely died from natural illness, including pneumonia and heart-related complications, conditions entirely consistent with an 84-year-old man in declining health. If medical science could not establish homicide, the defense argued, then no jury could confidently conclude that murder had actually occurred, regardless of how suspicious the circumstances appeared. Charles Jones also began distancing himself from his earlier confession. He later claimed investigators had pressured him into making statements that were not entirely true. Suddenly, what had looked like an open and shut murder prosecution became a deeply complicated legal battle filled with uncertainty, conflicting expert opinions, and unanswered questions. Jurors now faced an unsettling possibility. Had two men plotted to murder William Marsh Rice, or had they merely attempted to profit from the natural death of an elderly millionaire? With the murder allegation under increasing pressure, prosecutors shifted their focus toward another crucial piece of evidence, the will that promised Patrick almost the entire Rice fortune. To examine the disputed documents, they called David Carvalho, one of the earliest pioneers in forensic document analysis, whose methods were considered remarkably advanced for the time. Carvalho carefully studied the signatures using powerful magnification, comparing the disputed will against authentic examples of William Marsh Rice's known handwriting collected over many years. His examination revealed important differences. Certain writing characteristics appeared inconsistent with Rice's genuine signature, raising serious doubts about whether the document had truly been signed by the millionaire. The investigation did not stop with handwriting. Carvalho also analyzed the ink itself, looking beyond the words to the chemical properties that might reveal when the document had actually been created. Experts argued that the bluish-black ink matched a commercially available formula introduced after the date written on the disputed will, suggesting the document could not have been prepared when claimed. If that conclusion was correct, the implications were enormous. Someone had not simply altered an existing document, but had created an entirely fraudulent will using materials unavailable on its stated date. The forged will suddenly became far more than an inheritance dispute. It demonstrated planning, preparation, and an overwhelming financial motive tied directly to Rice's extraordinary fortune. Even if medicine could not conclusively prove murder, prosecutors argued that the fraudulent documents revealed exactly what Patrick had intended long before William Marsh Rice died. After hearing weeks of testimony, expert analysis, and legal arguments, the jury reached its decision. Albert Patrick was found guilty and sentenced to death in the electric chair. For many people, the verdict appeared to bring the extraordinary case to its conclusion. Yet the legal battle surrounding William Marsh Rice's death was far from over. Patrick refused to admit guilt. From prison, he launched appeal after appeal, insisting that prosecutors had failed to prove beyond doubt that William Marsh Rice had actually been murdered. The continuing uncertainty surrounding the medical evidence kept legal scholars divided. Some believed justice had been served, while others questioned whether the murder conviction rested on sufficiently reliable proof. Eventually, Patrick's death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment, acknowledging the lingering doubts that continued to surround one of America's most unusual criminal cases. Years later, in 1912, Patrick received an executive pardon and walked out of prison a free man. The pardon did not declare him innocent, but it reflected the unresolved legal controversy surrounding the case. Despite regaining his freedom, Patrick achieved none of the wealth he had pursued. The forged will failed completely, and not a single dollar of William Marsh Rice's estate reached him. Instead, the original charitable vision survived. Rice's fortune remained protected, preserving the educational legacy he had planned years before his death. Those funds were ultimately used to establish Rice University in Houston, transforming one man's lifetime of business success into an institution that would educate generations of students. More than a century later, the university continues to stand as a lasting reminder that history can sometimes change because of details so small they are almost overlooked. A misspelled name on a check prompted deeper questions. Careful document examination exposed a forged will. Tiny pieces of evidence ultimately protected one of America's greatest philanthropic gifts. Whether William Marsh Rice died naturally or became the victim of a murder that science could never fully prove remains a subject of debate. But one fact is certain. A fortune meant to change lives was saved, and an enduring legacy survived because investigators refused to ignore the smallest clues.